Entrepreneurs have been taught to forward think and to be always predicting what else can happen. And they haven't had much opportunity to really stay in the moment. And what ends up happening when they can't stay in the moment, they can't really assess what's going on relationally. And so we want to help high achievers stay in the moment, be present with the distress, and most importantly, Roland, not go into any kind of shame cycle.
I am here with someone who probably needs no introduction. Judging by talking to all the guys in my groups, I think they all agreed. Half of them, I think, knew more about you than I did somehow. But I'm here with Carol, the coach. She's the one who brought us the book that probably all of you already have on your desk or somewhere right around your vicinity of even listening to this. Help Her Heal. It has just become a staple, I think, within the betrayal, recovery, and sex addiction space of introducing what are we going to do in these first 8 months of crisis? Oh my gosh. And I think your book gets people to wrap their head around that. So for everybody who still doesn't own a copy of it, do purchase it. It is a workbook. So it is not something you just listen to on Audible. It is something that you grab and can do every night. And it helped me a ton in terms of how can I meet my wife where she needs to be met in a time where my guilt and shame and remorse is at an all-time high. And it's hard for us guys, especially high achievers, entrepreneurs, to be pathetic because it's just typically we're solution oriented. And so honoring someone else's experience is, not usually our go-to. But anyways, I want to thank you. Your book was in the initial stages of my own recovery with my wife. It was very, very, very helpful. So thank you so much.
Well, you're so welcome. And I'll tell you, they call me the grandmother of sex addiction and partner betrayal because I had the first podcast ever on sex addiction in the world. And I had the first book on how to develop empathy for partner betrayal because sex addicts don't know. Not only do they not know because they probably don't possess as much empathy as they could, but also because there was no research that substantiated the 3 areas of partner betrayal. And, you said earlier to me, 9 months, that first 9 months is so very tough. And I gotta agree. I mean, partner betrayal is in 3 stages. And the first stage is 9 months to 15 or 16 months. So that is the toughest stage because it's the safety and stabilization phase for partners. And so I teach addicts how to have that empathy so that they can do better with the relational fracture that occurred.
And I want to speak to 2 things there. One, just so everybody knows, the way I define that first phase, you're really not a couple in that for that first year and a half. And the reason I say, I know that sounds brutal, but the reason I'm saying that is it's probably not that accurate. I mean, you guys are still a couple. But what I'm saying is I say that to guys just so that they don't try to do too much couple stuff, because I think in that first 9 months or year and a half, there is, out of fear, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to heal things. I hear guys all the time say, I'm desperate. I'm to do anything. I make her a coffee. I'm doing the bed. I'm running. They're trying anything they can to heal this thing. Here's what I would say. To me, what I've learned, and this is all in hindsight because I screwed all this up, just so everybody listening, I'm not in any way claiming that I did any of this right. I'm saying this all from my own mistakes. If you want to speed up recovery, if that's even possible, you need to honor the phase that you two are in. And so in that first year and a half, what I wish I knew was she is still wondering if she even wants to be a couple. Does she want to sign up for what we are going to have to do for the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5 with this relationship? Is that something she wants to sign up for? Is it something that she thinks that I'm even capable of participating in and going the distance? Am I a safe person to be around? Am I a safe person to have the kids be around? I mean, that's really what the topic of discussion is. Is this even a coupleship I want? And so, I say if we really honor that phase, in my opinion, I'd love to hear your take on it. Really, there's really only 2 things you can do in that phase, which is it's an internal journey. I mean, ultimately, how is she going to know that you are safe to be with and that you are actually excited to go through this pain because you're excited about becoming this new man and the new relationship that could be formed? Really, you excited on your own. She needs to feel like you want to become safer and that you actually are looking forward to going through the pain and getting through to the other side as long as she wants to participate. And then the second thing I would say is also doing everything you can to honor the gravity of what she's experiencing, which is very difficult in the first 8 months. But I would say, to me, it's all you can do. Go on an intense internal journey, and then do your best to honor what it would be like to be married to somebody who just lied to you and chose a bunch of other women and put your potentially even your health and family at risk multiple times over and over. Imagine how scary that would be to sleep next to somebody that was hiding something from you for years and years and years. When I say that, kind of my impression of the first phase to you, in my hindsight, of course, because I did everything wrong, what are your thoughts on my summary of that?
Well, I 100% agree with you. And all the guys out there know that after partner betrayal has occurred and discovery has occurred, maybe even disclosure has occurred, she is wondering, who did I marry? Is he telling me the truth? Will we have a future? Can I trust him at all? And when that happens, addicts don't necessarily know what to do. Now, Roland, what I really loved about what you said is something that I have been teaching both through ITAP, who certified sex addiction counselors, and then APSATs, the partner trauma specialist. I've taught at both institutes, and I say an addict has to work on their own good recovery and get it down. And he can't even really begin to do any kind of empathy until he's got 90 days sobriety. So that's the minimum. And of course, we'd like longer, but at that point, usually a partner wants to know the truth. And she has pulled and pushed and probed, and her mind is racing so terribly. She's getting new information at least every day, every other day. And she thinks, what else don't I know? And that's why I feel the disclosure, a formal therapeutic disclosure by people who are trained, who are going to support both the addict and the therapist in this very difficult process. I always say, gosh, this is really the addict's first opportunity to show empathy, because the last thing he or she, but I'm going to talk about he's for right now, wants to do is tell her everything. I mean, he's already hurt her enough. Why does he need to go into some of the details of the facts? But she can't put the puzzle pieces together unless she has those facts. Now, on occasion, I will meet a partner that doesn't need that. And I always say, once discovery has occurred, the partner's in the driver's seat. And, for overachievers or just big achievers, that's really hard to step down from the driver's seat and let this traumatized person make decisions. I mean, that's counterintuitive to what anybody would want to do. That is actually what we want our men that have problematic sexual behavior to do, is to let her make the decisions. She's in the power seat. And while she is, we want a good therapist or coach who knows how to help her get her executive functioning back online so that she's not in that traumatized state and can see the good works of what this man is trying to do to rebuild safety and stabilization is what we call it.
And what I would say to that too, and everybody hearing that is, really, we're not giving you the keys forever. We're not putting you in the doghouse for, I don't even think you ever need to go to the doghouse. I don't think that's a necessary step. I don't think you need to go to the doghouse. I think you can give her the keys and you can get in the passenger seat and you guys can collaboratively drive to a location like you guys do every day when you get in the car together. So it doesn't need to be, I don't want everybody to hear the impression that there's this, you now get to be some sort of, punching bag type of thing. Again, because that is said sometimes. And again, I think, I don't think that's necessary, but what Carol's saying here really is we do have to honor that you were essentially in the driver's seat unknowingly. And so all we're simply doing here is saying, hey, here are the keys. I understand that I just deceived you and hid a bunch of things from you, and that you don't even understand who I am and what kind of life you're living in is your worldview right now. Again, whether she's right or not, I know as the addict, you're always like, oh, honey, come on. This is like this teeny tiny piece of me, and all this other stuff is the real me. Again, because of the deception, you have to understand, I know that's how you see it. What she doesn't know now is, what more don't I know? So for her, it's all, if you're a liar about something this big, you could be a liar about anything. So all we're simply doing when we give her the keys is saying, hey, I'm honoring the fact that what this did has essentially discredited our entire life together. And I'm giving you the keys so you can explore and figure out what is actually true, what's not true. So when everybody hears that, I know initially I thought I was in trouble. I thought that I was getting, and again, we're not trying to make you in trouble and give her the keys so that she gets a turn to punish you. That's not what we are doing. We're giving her the keys so that she can figure out what is actually going on. And she is probably going to, assuming you don't keep lying to her, which a lot of guys do, unfortunately, as long as you don't keep lying to her, when you give her the keys, you know what she's going to find out? It's not that you're going to be punished. It's not that she wants to punish you. It's that when she drives around, you know what she's going to find, assuming that you participate and help her. She's actually going to find out the same thing that you already knew, which was, honey, this is actually only 5% of me. And there's a lot of things that went on in my life to drive this little piece. And I want these out of my life as much as you do. Again, that's why we're giving the keys, is she needs to figure that out on her own. And she needs your help and a therapist's help to be able to discover that. So I want everybody to just hear that. We're letting her find out the same thing. This is a small part of you that you don't want in your life either. And we're giving her the keys because she doesn't trust you to be in her car anymore because you're a freaking liar. And so now she's trying to figure that out. But again, if it truly is only 5% of you, then giving her the keys, she's going to find that out. She's going to find that out, unless you are a delusional psychopath, and then she's going to find that out either way. But my point is, it's in your best interest to give her the keys, because we're really, in my opinion, Carol, we're either talking about 3 years of just this disastrous, which that happens to a lot of couples. It's just this disastrous thing. And at that point in time, now you kept trying to take the keys from her. You're giving her keys sometimes, or like you gave her some keys, but not all the keys. And the problem with that now is, essentially the message you told to her is, this might not be 5% of you. And that's what I'm saying. It's in your best interest to turn everything over so that she can find out that this is actually not you, and that this is something that both of you see eye to eye on. But again, to me, until you give her the keys, she's not going to figure that out.
Yeah. Addiction hijacks the brain. And so the person that has the problematic sexual behavior isn't the person that he wants to be. His brain was hijacked. And now that discovery has occurred and he's out of the fog, he wants to be a better man. You know, it's interesting. I would work with sex addicts. I was the only CSAT in Indianapolis, and I'd work with sex addicts and I'd say, you're doing so much better. This recovery looks good on you. And I'd say, is there anything wrong in your life? And they would say, yeah, my wife is in the fetal position on the floor. Mm-hmm. Or I wake up in the middle of the night and my wife is pounding me. She's so angry. Mm-hmm. Well, she was in a trauma state. That anger was really trauma. And that's when I decided that my help her heal wasn't enough. I had to write Help Them Heal, because that's based on a model called URCM. And that's where you pull both of them in together from the very first session. And you decide and help them decide what would make both of them feel safer. You know, the addict is not a villain. He may have done horrible things, but he was hijacked. And now that he's out of the addiction, he's ready to be the man she wants him to be. And I have no doubt about that, because I've seen that over and over and over again in my practice. But URCM teaches them relational skills so that they learn how to sit together, knees to knees, looking at each other's eyes. He repeats back what she says, a lot of very basic skills that she needs to feel safe.
It's again, going back to what we initially talked about, this first, we'll call it 15 months, because it can go that long. I've seen it go that long. And we're kind of going back to what we initially said. What we're talking about really of honoring that first phase is the best way to honor it is to understand that you have lost all credibility. I know you don't think that you have, but to her, you have, because I know you think it's one lie. Unfortunately, that one lie, within the container of a marriage, is enough to discredit everything. It's enough to get the vacation photos pulled off the wall. It's enough to have the wedding ring taken off and not celebrate the anniversary. I mean, you have to understand, to her, it discredits the entire thing. I think I've loved the analogy of, the water dropper with food coloring, and to her, she's this glass of clear water. And then when the discovery happens, there's been a blue drop, and now the whole water is dyed blue. And there is no turning the water clear, ever. She is a blue cup of water, and you now need to be in a relationship with a blue cup. And it's not impossible. It's not impossible, because we can work on that. But I think, the guy's perception is, hey, let's go back to when you were clear. Remember that? But guys, she's not going to be clear ever again. She now has and this is with you or even any future husband. Let's say the two of you got divorced and she got remarried. She's still going to be a blue cup of water in that new marriage. So I want everybody to understand it's not a bad thing. She's just a blue cup of water. And the truth is, you want to know what I would say for the guys to understand this? She thought she was married to a clear cup of water. And it turns out that you are actually a purple cup of water too, because you had a bunch of stuff that happened to you that made you purple. And I think the two cups can be in a relationship. I think the thing that helped me a lot, Carol, was, especially at that 15-month mark, a lot of the guys can start to run out of steam. I've seen a lot of guys say, shoot, maybe I want the divorce. Maybe I don't want to do this. And I always hate when I see that, because, I watch their recovery and I'm like, oh gosh, come on, you guys are so close. Don't quit now. Right. But the thing that really helped me, Carol, was, because the guy starts saying the story, wow, she's acting like a child. She's not in her adult. Here's what I would say though, to the guys who say that. I don't disagree. I get what you're saying, because she is not acting in her adult. So I'm not saying you're wrong. Here's how I would have you reframe that. She had to just put up with my child, all of these things, like that's like my entitlement for my sexuality, the things that I thought I was okay to do, the things that I thought were okay to lie about, the things that I thought were okay to conceal, that I was going to get away with. That was my, 12-year-old in me saying, well, I have sexual needs and she doesn't understand, and monogamy is unnatural, or whatever the heck my addict was doing. Again, that was childish, and that's caused this whole thing. So now she's dealing with the damage of your child. And now you touched on her inadequacies as a young woman of being unwanted, unattractive, too old, not good in bed, whatever it is, the story that she's saying about herself. And yes, that is childish, because, in the end, you love her and you don't believe any of those things. And so, but again, she's now wounded because of your child. So that's what I would say to reframe everybody is, you're getting what happened to you that justified all of your behaviors is now happening to her. And again, it's not justifying, because again, she doesn't want to act this way. But that was my reframe. It was like, Roland, because of my childish behaviors and me not being my adult when I'm with her, now I touched on a bunch of her wounds, and I should show her the same. If I'm asking for the grace for my childish parts that came into our marriage, I need to have some grace for the wounds that I poked on with her. Does that ring true? Are you understanding what I'm getting at there, Carol?
100%. And what I also believe is, since there are these three phases, and that second phase is grief, mourning, loss, and anger, these guys are going to be dealing with a lot of anger and a lot of sadness, and they don't necessarily know what to do with that either. And so there's a guidebook to help them. There's therapists that have been trained specifically in IRCM that'll walk them through, because here's what I want. Between years 3 and 5, I want them in post-traumatic growth together. Every spiritual, philosophical view says out of great suffering comes transformation and giving back and getting better. And I have watched couples get better together. I've watched addicts get better together. I mean, that's what 12-step groups are when you're doing that 12-step and giving back. And so I just really believe that is the course how relationships can go. But we don't do enough talking about post-traumatic growth.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't give hope to the addicts
Mm-hmm.
to say, gosh, is this going to be a jail sentence for 30 years?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't give hope to the partner to say, not only can you heal and he can help expedite that,
Mm-hmm.
but you two can grow closer and be restored in a new and different way that is way better than the way you ever had, because what you had wasn't real and
Yes.
this can be.
Mm-hmm. I just did a podcast on this literally last week. It's already live. People have probably already listened to it. It was called Thriving After Betrayal. And the whole reason I put it together was because this particular woman that I interviewed, her and her husband and my wife and I are thriving. Things are better. The future is bright as can be. My wife and I, a lot of people don't know this, we're actually not legally married. We had a wedding, but we didn't sign anything. And so she could literally get in a car and leave and never talk to me again. And there would be no legal obligation on her behalf to ever speak to me, which means she's staying with me because at this moment in time, she believes I am the best husband she could find. And I actually want her to believe that and stay with me for that reason. I don't want her to just be with me to be with me. I want her to be with me because she believes that this is the best partnership she could be in. And that's it's thriving. But I agree with you, Carol, and I get why it's that way. Typically when people are reaching out, they are in crisis. And so I understand why there's such a focus on the first year and a half. But I do agree with you, Carol. I think here's what I see, at least with my men. So my men are all high achievers, entrepreneurs. Mediocrity is something they are unwilling to accept. But here's the challenge. And I think you bring up a really good point. When we hit that like year and a half mark, there's so many guys who come into my program like, oh, I gave my wife an ultimatum. I said, hey, things better, they gave their wife an ultimatum. They say, hey, things better be better by the end of this year. Otherwise, I think we should talk about what we, maybe splitting up or trialing a separation of some kind. And it's always interesting when I hear that, because it's like, I think where that's coming from, Carol, is a lack of hope, a lack of discussion around, so much of the discussion has been up to year 0.5. And then now they're here and they're looking at it and they're like, well, wait, what the heck? We survived year and 1.5, which was the hardest one, but here we are. And she's still crying, 2 to 3 times a week, crying in her bedroom. I can't comfort her. Right. And so it's like, oh my gosh, this is still not the marriage I want, which is sad, because I think that is another phase. But I also think in the between all of her crying and tears and times where she did have to go to her friends outside of the marriage for comfort because I was not the person to be able to do it, it didn't mean that in the 4 days that we had in between those moments that her and I were incredibly connected and we were insanely transparent about our situation in a way that we were never able to do in the first year and a half, where the addiction is almost something that this other person did, not me. And even her damage is something that happened to a wounded part of her that's not her today. And we're collaboratively discussing, how is this purple glass of water going to be in a relationship with this blue glass of water? And we're doing it together as a couple. And I think, to your point, there's not enough discussion about thriving after betrayal. I want you to speak to that a little bit. If you can shine some light and some hope, how can we sell these men at the year 1.5 that the future is so bright? How can you reframe that? Because it does. I'm telling you, Carol, it was a very big disappointment.
Tell you how I can reframe
it was a very big disappointment for me at that point, because I was like, wait a second, I thought this was supposed to be gone, and she's still crying.
Yeah, the truth is that you can get a beautiful color when you combine that blue and that purple.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what post-traumatic growth is all about. Now, you said to me, which I thought was really interesting, that you did the podcast on thriving. And what we know is when there's been trauma like this, whether it's from molestation, any kind of abuse in childhood, whatever, they become survivors. They're not victims, they're survivors. And out of survivors, we want thrivers.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to say, I am stronger because this is what I learned. You've used reframing twice, and reframing is a term that means, and for most of your entrepreneurs, they know this. Reframing is when you take a difficult situation and you say, how am I stronger? What did I learn? And how's it going to help me move forward? And I'm a forward thinker, and it's the coach in me, and a mental health therapist for 43 years. And what I know about addiction in general is it creates thrivers. As long as you're willing to do the work, whatever the work is for you personally, and for everybody, that's very, very different, right? Same thing for the coupleship. You said, how can I shine light and hope? Well, my very first chapter of Help Them Heal is all about, I want to be your hope. I want to be your beacon of hope to tell you I've seen this work over and over and over again. If you're willing to take a bit of a one down position, create safety and stabilization for that first phase, if you can be there and witness her grief and the anger and the mourning and the loss. And once that is done, believe it or not, it's not linear, but I'm promising you, post-traumatic growth enters into each phase. And we need therapists that say, how are you stronger? Right now, you may not be out of this, but what have you learned about yourself? Oh, you're setting better boundaries. Great. Oh, you're more assertive. Great. Oh, you've got better family values. Great. Oh, you've got more work-life balance. It's not all about work and acting out. You got family in there. And there are so many ways to create values that support your integrity, both as an addict and also the integrity of a partner. Because I'm telling you, when a partner's been traumatized, she doesn't like who she is. She doesn't like how she's showing up, but her brain is doing that to her. So we need a lot of psychoeducation. We need a lot of grace. I never ask a partner to forgive, but most of them do. The research shows she wants to work through this. She does not want a divorce. And that's the important thing for men with problematic sexual behavior to know, that they've got that on their side. And if they don't, then divorce or separate in integrity, be the best man or woman you can be, and then do it better the next time. You know, I mean, we have lots of opportunities in this world to be a better person, because when you know better, you do better, right?
I want you to speak to two things, because again, the promise of my podcast always is I want to help high achievers and entrepreneurs, executives, professionals. You know, they're a different breed, and there are unique problems. And I believe that these problems don't get brought up, which is unfortunate, because my impression of high achievers is that they are actually okay with being wrong. You know, the cool thing about high achievers, I know everyone talks about them as, you know, these narcissistic individuals that are unreasonable. My experience is very, very different. They actually love being wrong, because the faster that they can be wrong, they can be right. And so they actually want to know when they're not right, because they can stop being wrong, and they want to be right. Right. So, but my question is two things. One, I want to speak to, it might be better to do them in this, in the reverse order, but I'll say the one first, and then I can have you go back and answer them in the other order if it makes more sense. I do want to speak to these. Like you said, it's not linear. And I cannot tell you how many times, Carol, we have this, one of the cool things that we have in our group is we have these channels for 24/7 nonstop connection and accountability with the group members on an app that runs 24/7. So you guys don't have to worry about making a call. You don't have to worry about sending a text. The group's running nonstop. It's all video message too. It's so great. So it's like your peers group of the same 9 guys that you've been recovering with for the past year, however long you've been in the group. You know, those 9 guys are right there for you in your pocket. These 2 notifications right here on my phone are 2 of the groups talking to each other. And so, but my point is, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard a guy say, "Oh my gosh, we've had the best week ever." And then the next week, Carol, they come in and say, "Oh my gosh, never mind. She's still a crazy psycho. We're now exploring separation," because because it's not going up and to the right. And again, high achievers, that's their big thing, is they're always looking for progress up and to the right. That's just kind of their mentality.
Right.
And so we do have these dips all the time. Oh my gosh, in those years, there were so many times where I was like, "Oh wow, I guess we're back to square one," which is not accurate, but that was my perception as a high achiever was, "Oh wow, we're back to square one, and all of the work that we just didn't matter." you and I both know that's not true at all. And a lot of those dips are actually, and now in hindsight, signs of immense progress, because the reason that dip happened was trust did re-enter the relation, her mind. She did actually start to trust you again. And now it's actually creating that dip because she now has trust and she's having, different set of emotions that are coming up. So that was kind of one question, and it might be better answered after you go back to number two. And number two is, right before you and I were talking, and you had a really great description of the high achievers journey and mindset, and the way they're kind of, once they've stumbled across success or achieved success, they kind of go on this really interesting journey that does usually lead to more success, but it also can cause, depending on how they do it, a lot of problems. And I think a lot of men are unaware that they even did that. And so I don't know how you want to answer those two questions. I don't know if it would be better to talk about the psychology of the high achiever and then go back to their perception of the dips and the story they tell themselves about the significance of this lull in the relationship, or if it would be better to start with the mindset of the high achiever and how it starts to change once success has entered their life.
Well, I think I'd like to say first, just to help addicts understand their partners, that clearly Brene Brown talks about it. There is a sense of foreboding joy. When things are better, the partner isn't sure she can trust it because she got duped before. She wants to prevent being duped again. So what does? She pushes you away. And when that happens, that's because she has foreboding joy. So that is really when the addict needs to hold space. Well, let's see, can you see my hands there? Holding space so that he can contain the pain while she expresses it. And then it's really a formula that says, acknowledge that you caused it. Remind her that you're here in the present. See, the goal of trauma treatment is to keep her from being there. You want her here. You want her here right now. And so he can be a vehicle for that by keeping her in the present and saying, what do you need from me right now? I can see you're scared to death. I can see you're angry. I know we had a great week last week. What do you need this week to make it a great week again? And really sitting with her in that distress and helping her stay present will expedite her healing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sit with her, acknowledge the past, know that he caused it, contain her pain,
Mm-hmm.
and say, what do you need from me?
Mm-hmm.
That will break that cycle so that she begins to float back up where she thinks she's sinking. The second thing, I believe that you were referencing is that entrepreneurs have been taught to forward think and to be always predicting what else can happen. And they haven't had much opportunity to really stay in the moment. And what ends up happening when they can't stay in the moment, they can't really assess what's going on relationally. And so we want to help high achievers stay in the moment, be present with the distress, and most importantly, Roland, not go into any kind of shame cycle. And that shame cycle might be, this is never going to get better. Or the shame cycle may be, she hates my guts. Or the shame cycle may be, I can't live like this. Or the shame cycle may be, I'm not good enough. But it's always about them not feeling competent enough to handle the situation. And yet research suggests if they just stay with her, lean into the pain, contain it, acknowledge it's from the past, and ask what she needs, that will be the first thing they can do to move forward in the relationship and get them to where they were last week. That's so important.
Yeah, you're, and that's why, because again, at least for the men in my groups, empathy is a dirty word. Safety is a dirty word. Holding space for her pain is a dirty word. I mean, these guys have grown so tired of these therapy terms. They have like almost like PTSD from these terms coming up. And that's where I like what you said and the way I always frame it. And again, that is because, again, my high achiever, goal oriented, Mr. Fix It kind of brain goes this way. But the way that I finally got it was exactly what you said. And I word it. You guys have heard me say this before today in this recording, is honoring the phase. And I think and the reason I like to say it that way is entrepreneurs know how to do that. We all know we enter these phases of business, these phases of where there are just a bunch of things out of our control while we are in this phase. And the only way,
business or
yeah, there'll be a time where, again, leadership turnover, who knows what's going on. And there's a time where that phase needs to be honored. If you come in there and you tell all of your employees, your team, and you try to fast forward them through, again, that will only lead to typically more turnover. These guys know this. And so really, we have to honor the phase. And so what I mean by that is, rather than trying to do all these buzzwords, empathy, safety, I know these guys, they hear those words and they roll their eyes and check out and stop listening. Again, ignore all those words for now and just listen to what Carol and I are saying and honor the phase. When they're in that phase, just think to yourself, okay, I know you guys are all for most of the guys listening, you guys are all system people. You guys want systems to expedite results. Well, this is one of those phases where we can only do what we can do. And so honor the phase. Honor the phase. So what does that mean? Yeah, it does mean some empathy, right? Because it does mean, hey, the agenda is less about moving forward and getting over this. And the agenda right now is, hey, I don't even know if I want to be with you. So how about we do the things so that I can feel safe with you and I can feel like you and you're going to go the distance. I would say this, Carol, I think especially in later recovery for the partners, for the couples who have made this to like a year and a half, I think, yes, the guy's starting to lose a little bit of patience, but I also think that when that happens, the guys perceive this kind of setback. And I don't necessarily disagree with them, because I think what the partner's feeling as they're feeling your capacity issues and your fatigue is, oh, well, never mind. I guess you won't be able to make it to the finish line. Right? You guys, I hope every guy hearing that, you hear what I'm saying? When you guys just stop honoring the phase and you start showing signs of fatigue, low patience, capacity issue, hey, get over this thing. It's been, here we are at a year and a half. What's still wrong with you? Again, what she's now picking up on is you're no longer honoring phase one. And actually, if you listen to Carol, you're no longer even honoring phase two. So what your partner is feeling inside, even though she's not a therapist, she's feeling accurately. She's feeling, wow, this is not someone who's going to be able to make it through phase two with me. And so what you're doing is you're actually giving her a red flag by giving her this ultimatum or showing the impatience. So I guess that's when I heard you talk, Carol, that's what I would highlight is the moment you stop honoring the phase, you may by accidentally be showing signs of, hey, I actually can't go the distance. I don't want to feel this way anymore. You need to hurry up. And that impatience, again, that's not. The other thing I want you to speak to, which I think you did such an eloquent job of, I know it's not necessarily off topic, but it's kind of different from what we talked about, but I would love to have you speak to it because you're just such a wealth of knowledge working with a lot of these men over the years. You talked about how men start doing, successful men, entrepreneurs, high achievers, they start doing things to validate this new them, this successful them. I want you to speak to that because I do think it matters to the relationship, because I do think in some ways they're torn. It's like, okay, there's me over here, and then there's like successful me. What are some of those things that you were speaking about that the high achiever will start engaging in to validate the new them?
Well, you spoke about it earlier when you said that you have found that a lot of the men that you work with become very accustomed to affection and attention. And they'll spend a lot of money on that. They'll go a lot of places to get it. And yet, really, what we know about people that they've really achieved success is that they've oftentimes had marginal families where they didn't get enough of their childhood needs met. Mm-hmm. By that, I mean that they've had trauma, they've been neglected. I mean, Patrick Carnes, the guru of sex addiction, says sex addicts come from disengaged, rigid families that don't nurture and support. Mm-hmm. So when these guys get into entrepreneurial relationships, and they start building companies, and they're the leaders in their field. They get that attention and affection, and because they've worked so hard, that dopamine gets quieted, and they look for other reasons to have dopamine. And so that's then where they confuse with sexual acting out and behaviors. Now, when they get back into recovery, when the fog settles, when they realize what their values really are, they want so very badly to be the man that they knew they should have been, but their brain was already hijacked. And so what I want to say as we begin to end is that it is so important for a man to pay attention to owning his own integrity, finding safe and healthy ways of producing that dopamine, and putting family first, despite the fact that the families had to be on the back burner to get where they've had to be. And that's quite a juggling act. But what I do know is that men that end up being in good integrity, good things happen to them because they're doing the pyramid of intimacy properly. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yeah, Dan Drake and their work. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just amazing work. And, you know, your guys are obviously en route to a bigger, better life with better values. And I just want them to know they can get there. Help Them Heal. We'll teach you how to do it. If you like to help her heal, you're really going to like Help Them Heal. If you want somebody who's good at this work, find an IRCM specialist. You know, most people that have written these books have gotten my training. And again, I want to be a beacon of hope, as is Roland. And Roland, you just keep up the great work because you are treating a group of men that have been through a lot before they even met her. And then they found success, and then they lost it because they lost the most important thing, their family. And now we got to help them build that up too.
And to your point, it's interesting when you learn how to connect. Most of the men in my program, it's funny, it's not a business program, but most of them 2x or 3x their income through recovery. And it's funny because, you know, it's not, they don't do anything different. It's just when you think about how money works, people give you money. That's how money works. People say, hey, you do something and I want to choose you, and here's my money because I want to give it to you because I like you to do this job for me. And I'm telling you now, if you thought you were successful before, which I thought I was, and now that I've learned what connection and intimacy is, to really see myself and show that to another, and then to have them feel safe to show themselves to me. Oh yeah, like you said, it opens far more doors, and I think these men even begin to understand
the law of abundance and attraction. Coaching principles,
real thing.
Principles. I mean,
it's a real thing
when you work that.
Yes, it's a real thing. It's not make believe. So Carol, obviously, what's the, talk to us. Where is the website for those men who don't have the book yet or haven't taken one of your courses? Where do they go? How do they sign up?
Well, go to www.sexhelpwithcarolthecoach. It morphs right into Help Them Heal. I have online courses for Help Her Heal, Help Them Heal, one for Unleashing Your Power for partners. I offer workshops all the time. You can get my books at Amazon. They are bestsellers on Amazon. I've been so blessed to be a pioneer in the field. That's one of the good things about being a grandmother in this stuff. And I just wish you continued success because you've got a really important niche.
Yes, thank you, Carol. And you've been such a wealth of knowledge today. I know everyone in my program, I told them that I was interviewing you today, and all of them were like, hey, can we have early access to the recording? So I know everyone's going to love this, and I really appreciate your time today.
All right. Make it a good one. I got to run.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye, Carol.
Bye.